got a great guest to kick off today's show. I am, of course, your director of fun and games, Bill Matz. Charlie O'Connor, Philly's #1 hockey beat writer, joining us as well. And Flyers assistant coach Todd Reirden to kick off today's show. We are, of course, brought to you by our great draft week sponsors, Ashley and Wawa. Todd, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh yeah, I was hoping to have a chance to come on and talk today. That meant we probably took a defenseman in round one, so I'm always happy about that opportunity to talk about him. So exciting day for us yesterday.
That was, of course, when they told us we were getting Todd Reirden. I said, "Well, perfect."
Yeah, that was a dead giveaway.
Yep, yeah. Well, just telegraphing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Working with the Flyers D-men and helping them develop. When you get word that the front office selects not just a defenseman, a 6'7", 240-pound mean SOB, what is your immediate reaction last night?
Yeah, that was it was interesting to be a part of, and major credit to Brent Flair and his staff, and they were kind enough to include me in some of the process and look at some of the guys and see if there's anything that I saw that pitfalls or anything that jumped out at me with a number of different guys. So I was very familiar with all these defensemen that were going yesterday, and in addition to our guy as well, that Max, that we're super happy about. So I was well versed on it, and I was hoping that it would play out that way. Obviously, there were some other guys, some forwards, and we're looking to take the best player we can. But this one was something that we're missing in our organization, and it's really difficult to find players like that now in today's game. So he was a fun one to watch, and went back to a little bit of my old school playing days of being a bigger D-man and understanding how you can impact a game physically and also through just your size and taking up space. So fun pick for us.
Todd, that's really cool to hear that you were included in the process. Obviously, they're going to want to get the expertise of people who know the position, and as defense coach, you obviously do. What, when you watched him, jumped out at you the most? Not even in terms of his skill set, because we all can watch and see that he's big, he's mean, he hits, he's got that ability. But what gave you confidence that those skills and his overall play is going to translate to the pro game and the NHL game?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because the players are so good now. They're so much more prepared to be able to make that step quicker than they did in the past. But with that being said, you're looking for certain attributes, and for us, just looking at the age of our depth of our defensive group and size of the defensive group. Now it became a little bit more of a niche that we thought we wanted to add. The thing that surprised me most was his when you're 6'7", oftentimes you're going to look a little bit uncoordinated on the ice. And if you look back at examples like Zadorov, those type of guys years ago. Chara when he first started, obviously those. I'm not saying that he's going to become Chara by any means, but that would be great. But in terms of being that tall, you often look a little awkward, and that was the thing that surprised me the most was his skating. His skating is a strength of his. Not normally for players of that size. It's the first thing that you're like, well, if we can get him to move his boots a little better, maybe we might have something there. Well, this kid can skate, and hopefully that jumped off the page at you, because it did for me. And that's where kind of the conversation starts, because the game's getting so fast.
That's what stood out to me is all the accounts of his skating. Yeah, of course it could get better. He's 17, but he is a good skater. And you bring up the example of Chara. I always talk about seeing him play for the Kentucky Thoroughblades in '98, and he was straight up.
Yes.
He was just straight up and got laid out all the time. And it looks like the mechanics are good, where the stride is good. He's deep on his skates, good bend. So I think that's really exciting. Last night there was a disagreement amongst my other co-hosts about the overrating of size in today's game. It is so fast now. Everyone is so skilled. The worst players are more skilled than anyone who's ever played before. What does a big guy bring that just cannot be replicated otherwise?
Yeah, I think before you get to a discussion about that, I'd preface my statements by saying that we were one of the only teams in the NHL, if not the only team, some nights that had 3 defensemen under 6 feet tall. So how we defended, how we used our feet, we saw the improvements that Jamie was able to make. Cam York. Emil had a career year, and we're able to, use him as an asset to be able to pick up a goaltender like Joseph Woll and some more size with Benoit. So it's important that you realize what you have. Like myself as a defense coach, like before I can, totally talk about how I want to develop these guys and what type of how we want to defend. And I speak with talk about it. We have to realize what strengths and weaknesses our group has. And one of the things that we have trouble with was boxing people out and getting into people early and not allowing them to get second chances. And I thought, in January, that was, when we look at our season and obviously lots of success, but you look at January and we had went through some injuries and a lot of goals were ending up on the backside there. Because of some size battles, and that was what kind of brought the size to a really important, I think, to the forefront for us. And so, like I said, it's nice to have different types of guys that can do different types of things. I think the fact of penalty killing using that size is a huge advantage. If we're not going to be able to get a power play guy that can help our power play, which we all know needs to improve. And there wasn't a power play ready guy that could come do that. So, maybe now we have to look towards, other options for that, getting ready for the season here. But this is a player that we know, not next year, not the year after. This is 3 years from now. We have a guy that can be, maybe even he's not even done growing. He was 6'7" and then ends up at 6'8", now already. And he's, close to 240 pounds. So those guys aren't around a lot. So that ability to be able to stand up for our teammates. Like I said, we don't have the size of our forward group is getting bigger with obviously the Martones and Nesbets and these guys that are coming, which is super exciting. And but we also have some undersized guys as well. So now I start thinking about, okay, who's going to be Jamie Drysdale's partner in 3 years? Who's going to be Cam York's partner in 3 years? And those are players that we like the growth of them from last year. And, in setting up our partnerships and pairs that we had, we felt that gave us the best top four we could have last year with the way that, obviously Travis Sanheim and Risto came back from the Olympic break and their push, to help get us in to the playoffs, and then the combination of Yorkie and Drysdale together we felt were our best four. And we think, yes, Travis has the chance to play. He can play on the right side, but we like him on the left side. And that's something that, we've spoken at length with Rick Tocchet about and the rest of our staff and that's why this left-handed guy that was at that size maybe sets up nicely for some of the right-handed, more skilled guys like Oliver Bonk that's on his way, and different right-hand shots that we have that are going to fall in that mix, and you may see a couple of them today. So as well, so it's really exciting for me to be able to have a combination of both because it's just something you can't teach.
Todd, I want to talk to you a little bit about Maksim's puck skills. So when we talked to Danny last night, he said, "Look, I'm not going to lie, we're not expecting him to be a big point producer, but to succeed at the NHL level, there has to be kind of like a baseline level of being able to do some things with the puck." You watch him play, and he can do things with the puck. He does make plays. You see him make plays. It just doesn't seem like the consistency is maybe there yet. Number one, is that kind of what you guys saw as well? And number two, why do you think you can maybe bring that out of him a little bit more just to get him to the point where, he can do enough with the puck so that his other strengths really show?
Yeah, I think that's, all in the evaluation process. You understand what, he's number 1 out of 5 on size. He's a number 2 out of 5 on skating. He's, so you have an evaluation tool that we use, at least I use whenever I'm evaluating players, in-house, and I'm evaluating whenever I'm asked to look at players for potential trades. So there's a number of different scenarios that we go through. So for him, obviously the puck skills are things that definitely have room to improve, but it's actually a little bit better than expected as I watch more and more games. And the interesting thing for me is so I went through this process and just watching his upward movement, even from the series that was against Sault Ste. Marie. I watched him play game 2, and he's super physical. He's heavy cross checks, hard on people, boxing out early, hits with guys cutting across the middle, kind of looking at trying to hit their top skill guys, Brady Martin or whoever, that are top players in the league. He's not afraid of any of that. But he's also able to execute breakout plays and, especially, get active in the rush. So, I watched it grow from that second game 2 to game 4, where he was already even better with the puck, just because he's used to the speed. And you got to keep in mind that this player basically came out of nowhere, and he's only played 40. What did he play? 44 games.
44,
and sure, he doesn't have the same skill level that that you'll see from Jamie, in terms of moving pucks and doing those type of things. But he is someone that does have an upside in that regard. And I definitely saw it even more when I went and watched 2 regular season games of him, and they were both at the end of the year. And I see the goalie scores. If the goalie scores he's a left-hand demon, and he joins on the right side as the 4th man in the attack. So he's joining the rush. He gets himself just inside the dots, in the middle of the ice, which we talked about our team being too perimeter at times. He joins the rush and gets the pass there, and it's on and off his stick in the back of the net, one of his goals that we saw. And that just happened to be one of the random games that I was going through. So that was again, sometimes you think that things happen for a reason, and it's okay, this is the little knock that there is on there, and there is the ability to actually do it, and it's not going to happen overnight, but we feel also one of the important parts of that is, where is he going to go play his junior hockey? And obviously London has been a great partner for us, so to speak, in terms of being able to develop players of all different strengths and skill levels, with the Hunters, and the connection with Philly and everything that way. So we feel really good about his ability to start working on that as early as this week. I'll be seeing him at development camp, and I'm super excited about that, and something that I've always felt strongly about in my 15 years in this league, primarily working with defensemen outside of the time that I was the head coach, is working on and creating relationships already with these guys and starting to give them things to work on for the rest of the summer. And I'm going to be able to be hands-on. I won't be going on the ice, but I'm going to be watching them, and, I'll have video with them and those situations, and I'm all in on that stuff. So that's my favorite thing, and I'm super passionate about it. But I also understand that there's, like I said, there's a learning curve, and I have had success in the past, with a Robert Bortuzzo, for example, who, carves out a nice career, and he's a much later pick that, that started in Pittsburgh, where you got a Derek Englund that, ends up that's, these are smaller guys than Max, but guys that also weren't all that skilled with the puck, but by the end of it, they're able to execute breakouts, and then they're end up getting, double-digit points, and now all of a sudden we've got something. So super excited, if you can't tell.
Todd, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. I have to get one more in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. No, good. I'm good.
I just have to. You mentioned whether the power play and that defense spot can be fixed internally, or something else has to be done. Flyers at the deadline go get David Jiricek. Comes to the team with 84 games of NHL experience, doesn't get in for the Orange and Black until that game 82 where he gets to play. It feels like all reports are he has the skill set to do that one thing that the Flyers are missing, handle the puck at the blue line. What does he have to do to get to that next level and become an every night defenseman?
Yeah, and I think, yes, he does have the ability to handle the puck at the blue line, but the thing that he brings to the table that we were clearly missing was the shot presence from up top. And yeah, when we have Jay Verde and Yogi, and Talk working a lot with the power play. They spend a lot of time on it, and obviously they do a phenomenal job. And now finding the right people in the to put into those spots, but that lack of a big shot back there from that right side, it was something that was targeted, and Danny did a great job, getting us an asset like that. So, the big shot is important. He's got to make sure that your best attributes you get out there every day. So I'll give you an example, without carrying on too much, but like when I met with Jamie and I started talking to Jamie in the summer, I said, you're a phenomenal skater, but you know what, I don't see your skating enough in the game. I said, if you and I are working together, and I'm going to tell you straight up, it's going to be, you may not like what I'm telling you all the time, but you're going to know exactly where you stand. And I said, I want your skate. I don't want everyone who comes to the game that understands the game of hockey to say, wow, number 9, that guy can skate. And these are the ways we're going to get that more involved. And now you saw it this year with him playing top players and closing and taking away time and space. Okay, so now when you have a player like David who has the big shot, now how can we get that shot involved? And how can you use it differently? And how can we, put you in spots where you're able to maximize that other than the power play? And then once you get, 3 or 4 or 5 opportunities in the first period to shoot it, then we get a power play at the end of the first. Now you've already, now you're warmed up and you're ready to go. You're not just coming out of the bullpen and throwing taking on one batter. So we got to get that involved in his 5-on-5 game so that, he's a long, lanky guy that can shoot it. So for me, that's the big thing, is we got to get his best attribute out there, to answer that question. And then he's got to be consistently hard, and that's in every opportunity that he's on the ice. But, for me to use that size and that reach, those are stuff that are going to fall on, our staff. And if it means, this summer when we're watching video and he's understanding, that sort of stuff, which is a common practice that I've done for years, is watching Zoom, video with them so that they totally understand how he's supposed to look, a visual of how he should look and a comparable for him. So that will be the thing for me, is the consistency, the hardness, being able to use the size and the reach to really create separation. And then let's get his best asset, his best attribute out there. And then, that's where he's going to get an opportunity. Because I will tell you right now, he's going to get an opportunity. The thing that was awesome to get him in that last game, but was disappointing, was we didn't have a power play in that game. Yeah. So we're all excited to watch him play in the power play. And I mean, it really could have changed things for us, because we might have even used him in the playoffs if we saw what we liked in that game. But, until you see a guy under fire, how is he going to handle this? You're playing meaningful games that, we had to go with people that we were more, comfortable with their experience. So you will be seeing him, in practice in our, now we're down to only 4 exhibition games. So you'll be seeing him in those, and you'll be seeing him in the beginning of the year getting that opportunity.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for your time, Todd.
Yeah, for sure, guys.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Flyers assistant coach Todd Reirden joining us here in the Xfinity Mobile studio. Just a great conversation.
Yeah, phenomenal.
I really would love to have you on again anytime.
Yeah. No, I'm more than willing anytime to talk about any of the things, because it's really an exciting time for the Flyers, and just what's gone on with the fans. And that was just an amazing scenario with how they reacted. After obviously things don't go our way against a very good, the eventual Stanley Cup champs, but how they reacted was something that is all of our players have talked about. We had our exit meeting with all of our players, and every one of them is so excited to come back and deal with this Philly faithful, and hopefully make them proud again of our team. And we know we've got a lot of work to do, and we know it's not going to be easy, and we've got to start right from square one in terms of some of the things we adjusted during the Olympic break, and some different mindsets we need to build on those while we had those those days that we worked with them. But anytime you guys want to have me on, I'm more than willing. But thanks for including me today.
Yeah, no, that sounds great, Todd. Thanks so much.
Thanks, fellas.
Much.